Welcome to the Best of US's Investors, Two Regular Guys show. Two guys who are just regular guys, Mark and myself, Trent, who are in love with investing. We like the technicals, we like the evolution of where investing is going. In this show, we're going to talk about crypto. I hate to say the second part of cryptocurrency because it's not a currency. So today we're going to talk about Bitcoin and where Bitcoin is trading at and how to look at Bitcoin, along with some of the other investable assets you can invest in that invest in Bitcoin and the uniqueness of them, along with what crypto is truly about. And that is the technology that we're seeing developing that is eventually going to support this whole AI revolution. So let's get going.
Cool.
All right.
Well, let's talk a little bit. We've done this before. We've talked in with the Platinum Channel and Best of Us Investors, and in an asset class we've been watching for 15 years, and is Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has gone from pennies to going over $71,000 last night. And we're trading about 70,000 right now for a single Bitcoin. And since the evolution of the SEC allowing Bitcoin ETFs in January, we've really seen the price of Bitcoin rise because there's two aspects of it. Number one is only 21 million Bitcoin will ever be mined in the sphere of things. So there's a supply issue. And then on the other side, with more and more ETFs being formed and more, now we're learning about companies and banks and sovereign nations buying and storing Bitcoin and holding. There's a demand side, and the demand has gone up while the supply is getting smaller because more and more people are not trading Bitcoin, they're holding Bitcoin. So as an investor, this has become an investment class, much like oil, much like gold, much like real estate. Okay. So it's really kind of a digital property. That's what I would call it. And that's, if you follow it at all, and I've been watching it since 2020 when I got interested in Michael Saylor, who's the president of MicroStrategy, and he's an aeronautics engineer, and he went to MIT and he started MicroStrategy, and he is, and he was born right here in Nebraska, so I have to give him that too.
There you go.
So when he came out, and I started watching him and his thought process, and then he converted all his treasury, his corporate treasury, into Bitcoin, and recently, as you know, he's been taking out convertible debt, which is debt at a rate that is less than 1%, and buying Bitcoin with that debt. So me as a debt holder, I will get whatever for 6 years, whatever that percent is, 0.6%. And then at the end of that time, I will have the opportunity to convert my debt over into shares, basically. And if you've looked at the price of MicroStrategy, it mimics Bitcoin, because MicroStrategy now owns 1% of all Bitcoin out there, over 215,000 Bitcoins, I think. And his goal is to buy more, to do more debt, to take operating profits out of MicroStrategy and continue to buy Bitcoin. And this strategy has got his company now, I think it's number 220-ish, as far as an S&P 500 company would look. And so they're anticipating MicroStrategy probably be included in the S&P 500 very soon, which is a good thing for the stock price itself, because then all the funds that have that mimic the S&P 500 will have to buy MicroStrategy now as a part of that fund that they own. So, long story short, Michael Saylor said, well, when you first hear about Bitcoin, it's a nice thing and you can talk about it. He says, but unless you've really studied it for 100 hours, the bell doesn't go off. And I guess for me, the bell has gone off finally. And I've been in it for a while, Bitcoin. And the more I look at it and the more I see what's happening with our currency, the devaluing of the dollar, because we continue to overspend in our government. And so we print more or issue more treasury bonds and treasury bills, which need to be paid back at a higher rate of interest. Okay. Plus we have inflation. So $100 3 years ago is not the same as $100 today. What you just think about what you could get in groceries, $100 or with $100 3 years ago, and what you get for $100 today, and that's inflation and the devaluation of your dollar. With Bitcoin, you really don't have an inflationary aspect with Bitcoin because there's only a certain amount. You're not going to see the government come and print more Bitcoin or mine more Bitcoin. And again, it's an open ledger. Everyone can see where everything flows to who, what addresses, and it's very secure. And there's no corporate hierarchy. There's no one you can go to and say, "Hey, you're responsible and you're changing the deal on Bitcoin."
It's
So
sort of
that's
like land.
yeah,
There is no governing body of land other than if you own it, right? But if you just look at land as just it as land, there's only so much of it. They're not making any more of it. And there is no governing body of it, in a sense,
and
in
cool.
the
That's
stripped
that's a
down
good
version of
That's a good point. But I'd have to say with land, okay, and land is a store of value. People have been using it for thousands of years. That we fight over lands.
it. Yeah.
However, once you attain land, as anyone who owns a house knows, there's maintenance costs, there's taxes, there's insurance, there's mowing
Right.
the yard. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that property taxes that take away from that store of value that you have. That is not what we see in Bitcoin. There is no property tax. There is no maintenance. There isn't, no insurance on Bitcoin. The only time you would pay is if you sold it for a profit and you have to pay your taxes on it, which is what you'd have to do on your property anyway.
Right.
So that's what makes it even better for me as a store of value. And so uh, I have a part of it as a part of my portfolio because it is now a true asset class in the eyes of the world. And wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it's the popularity, and as people get that 100 hours in of knowledge building about it and what it represents, the more and more interest has become of it. And you think about it, and we've talked about this before, when BlackRock, when Fidelity, two of the largest asset managers in the entire world, step up and say, "We want this," and they start offering those an ETF in it, they're not dumb. They're not they're getting on board. And they're
Yep.
getting on board for their own particular reasons, which of course is always to grab assets, yet they see a future in.
Yep.
They rarely do something where they don't see a future in. So
Yep. Well, let's just look at, I mean, one thing about Bitcoin or any crypto, I'm not going to call it currency, but any crypto asset products out there,
right.
is volatility. Okay. Being so new, I mean, you could get swings in the prices and swings, thousands of dollars now that we're at 60, or 69,000. I mean, I think it went up $4,000 yesterday.
Yeah.
We'll take a look here at a chart. And this is the just 2-year chart.
Wow.
And you can see, back here in 2023, it's January 2023, right in here. We're about $16,000.
Yeah.
And you can see, if you just trade above the 200, you'd still be above the 200. And just a long-term investor, today we're trading at just under $70,000. We're seeing right here is where I believe, this is about January. This is where we saw the ETFs come out and be approved for Bitcoin, and the price just skyrocketed up. It came up to about 73,000 back in March, and we've had this little downtrend. And you're going to see trends, and you can go on and see the experts in Bitcoin, and they have it all logged out in power laws and things. You really get intricate in it. It's really tied to mathematics. But yesterday we kind of had this breakout. You can see, and let's just go to a 3-month chart. And you can see we broke out. We're above the 50. We're 9 to 9, the 20. And we're just following this Bollinger Band. And today we've come back in, and we're finding support on the upper Bollinger Band. Okay, so I figured it would come back in. Again, if you apply the laws of technical analysis, you don't spend much time more than 5% outside of either side of the Bollinger Band. And this one's been touching it all the way up for the last 6 days. So again, this is where we've seen the increase. Will it come back down? Absolutely. I mean, everything does, nothing goes up forever. But for Bitcoin, you can see there's a lot of potential for gain in Bitcoin. Right here, our price was 61,000. Now we're at 70. Okay. Now you don't have to go buy a full Bitcoin. That would be hard for most people to do, but you can buy $1 worth of Bitcoin. You can buy $20 worth of Bitcoin. You can buy a tenth of a Bitcoin. Okay. A tenth of a Bitcoin today is basically 7,000. Okay. So, you know, and if Bitcoin goes up to some of the prices, I think Kathy Wood has talked about uh, uh,
Over 3 million.
3.8 million of Bitcoin. Just think of what that'll happen. Let's just say you did buy, you know, 10% of a Bitcoin, and you know it's $7,000. If it goes to 100,000, which is what a lot of these models have shown, you have $10,000 now with that 1/10 of a Bitcoin.
Right.
Okay, that's pretty good. And think other stocks that you have. Other stocks, you know, when I look at stocks, you have to worry about earnings reports. You have to worry about black swan events, you know, wars breaking out. You have to worry about a company issuing stock and diluting your shareholders. You have to worry about distributions. You have to worry about a lot of stuff. There's a turnover, layoffs, economy, all that. That Bitcoin and does not have employees. It does not have to worry about rules and earnings reports and all that. So for me, that gives me a little bit of comfort also.
Yeah.
There's also go ahead, Trent.
No, I agree with you. I think when you start to look at stocks, and having looked at stocks for over 30 years and been involved in the financial industry for over 25, you're dealing with human beings. And of course, you are dealing with human beings when it comes to the buying and selling of Bitcoin. But you're eliminating a lot of variables that control and drive company, you know, prices of companies. And I think that to me is inviting because it gets so complicated. You know, we've got NVIDIA's earnings, well, it'll be Wednesday, the 22nd, and there's a lot of speculation on what that is. You look at the charts on it, you know, if you're a chartist, you've definitely seen a resistance level. One word out of the CEO of NVIDIA's mouth that is negative, that stock gets cut in half. Whereas Bitcoin, there is no words. It is just what it is. And recently we had the halving, which cut down the production supply in half. So now there's 450 Bitcoin mined each day versus 900. Do I have that right? Yeah, 900. Was it 900 or 9?
That was 900, I believe.
Yeah, 900.
They're 450. Yeah.
Yeah, and that will get cut in
4 years. It'll be 225.
Yeah. So right, exactly. Sorry, I got my numbers messed up there.
Yep, no problem.
But it's very straightforward, and I think as an investor, having an investment that is really straightforward, sort of like land, you know what you're getting, you know what can be done with it, and you know that they're not making more of it. So
right.
Why don't you jump into MicroStrategies a little bit?
Yeah, let's take a look at MicroStrategy. Again, we talked about this company and all of its treasury, okay, is in Bitcoin. So it mimics Bitcoin pretty much. And we'll show the chart here. And here's MicroStrategy. You see here's back in January, and then here's where the ETFs for spot Bitcoin were accepted. You can see the price of MicroStrategy went from, where were we? We're at 493 right here. And we got up as high as almost $2,000. And here's that down, time that we saw Bitcoin come back down. And as Bitcoin comes back up, you see right now, where we're trading just under 1,700, and the same thing, we're right on that Bollinger Band. So it looks just like the Bitcoin map, okay? And this is MicroStrategy. We're above T, the 9's about to cross over. You can look at all the oscillators are looking good, and we're above the 200. So again, in the platinum channel, we can swing trade this, and we do. And I'll show you, we did swing trade this. We're still in it, and you can invest in it if you want. And I prefer to do both, actually, the way I look at it. Let's just go back. I'll show you where we are. here's where we got in this week, right at this point. We're still in, and we're up about almost 30% just in this week alone on MicroStrategy.
Wow.
So, and if
Well,
we go and we look, go ahead.
and that's the thing is with the Bitcoin in particular or MicroStrategies, you can swing trade these, and they do have technical patterns. I saw on your Bitcoin chart just earlier, you had, I believe that's a falling or descending flag formation that it had formed, and then it has broken out since then. Is that what, am I referring to that correctly
Um,
from a technical standpoint?
that's what that would be, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so you can use your technical analysis, which we teach on the Platinum channel, on how to enter these, this stock. Like here, this made, MicroStrategies made the watch list of the Platinum swing trading watch list, and you're up 30%. That's pretty insane, to be honest with you.
In
Uh,
5 days. Most
in
people don't
five
make that in
days,
5 years on their portfolio.
right? And
Now,
then
again, it's very volatile. It can go down
oh,
30%.
absolutely.
Yeah. So
But
you use the tools and the stops. Someone on the Platinum channel says this makes me nervous. I said, follow your trading plan. You're ahead of the game. If you got in anywhere over this line, you're ahead of the game. Put your stops in wherever you want and keep your profits. Okay. There's nothing wrong with profits, and you can't hit the lows. We're playing in between the lines.
correct. Yeah. So I think that's one thing, if you're not a long-term believer in what crypto represents, totally understandable. But from a tradable asset, it definitely has its opportunities, as we're seeing here in MicroStrategies, and then as well as IBIT, the ETF.
Here's the ETF here. You can see we've done the same thing. We've come up to a resistance level here, and it's interesting. Stop right on. This is my green line in the sand. Now I don't own any of this. We didn't put this particular one on a swing trading uh, watch list this week because of the way the lines, and the Bollingers and especially this resistance level here. We did put this one on, and this is again Beto, and this is a strategy. This is more of a futures options kind of strategy. They don't own Bitcoin in the CF, but it does pay out every month a certain uh, dividend, you can say, which is pretty good. But one thing you got to watch is the volume's only, well, I guess the volume's pretty good on this one. This is the one that has good volume. But here we went up, again, just like we saw in Bitcoin. It's going to follow that. And we've come back up and we got above the 50. And today we're using it as support. And that's how we look at it. Seeing a little turn up in the Bollinger Band. Here's where we have cells. And here's our intermediate resistance level. So there's room to run to the top, or there's room to come down to the bottom. So when you get ahead, and here's where we got in right at this point here. Set your stops wherever you want, to prevent a loss. You don't want to give it back. But again, you want to let it run if it's going to run too. So those are the things that we teach over basically in the Platinum Swing Trade channel. So that's what we got. I mean, I'm not making recommendations. I'm just saying that if now that the SEC has approved spot Bitcoin, and we'll talk a little bit, I think they're looking at approving spot Ethereum now, which is what we're seeing today. And you'll talk a little bit about that. If that happens, you're going to see the same thing happen probably in Ethereum, which is just going to keep rolling. So again, it's an asset class now. It's recognized by the U.S. government. It's recognized by different companies and banks around the world. They are using or not the banks that used to be bad mouthing it before are now hodling it. They're buying it. Okay, and we're learning because the 13Fs came out, and I think over 1,600 organizations showed in their 13Fs they were buying these ETFs.
Yeah, I was reading something last night about the 13F filings, and some of these big money managers have been buying up the IBITs, the Fidelity version of this ETF. Yep. So it is gaining popularity. Understand that they're buying them to make money for their the people who invest in their funds. And there will be volatility in it for sure. I I'm looking at this from another perspective, as well as from a trading or investing perspective, but also from a technology perspective. We have all heard for the last year and a half about AI. AI this, AI that, NVIDIA, super microcomputers, Intel, all of these companies, Applied Digital, SoundHound, blah, 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 right? But the one thing that very little is talked about is that you have to have an infrastructure to move that data back and forth. And in the world we live in today, it's really become a challenge from a security standpoint and identity theft standpoint. And I think where I look at crypto as more, as well as an investable store of value in Bitcoin, but also the technology that is being developed out of the blockchain network. When you hear Jamie Dimon talk about they're actually building blockchain network, infrastructure for JP Morgan Chase, this is serious. And because of what they're running into with transactions, the speed of transactions, having the right systems and infrastructure is becoming really essential, especially as we just are uploading so much development in AI, and we're seeing that whole, I believe it's called Moore's Law, that doubling of the speed for which things developed. In this case, semiconductor speed has doubled every year since the 1960s. We're now in a phase of development in AI and generative AI and so on, but you got to have the infrastructure to support it. And if your infrastructure is based on, I know this is going to sound odd, early 2000 technology, you're only going to be able to go so fast and provide so much based on that old technology. And I think this is where
at a higher cost, right?
At a higher cost, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now with Satoshi's white paper and the introduction of blockchain technology, we're now in a world where we can speed up that technology. And there are companies that will show some charts here in a second that are playing to that, and that will become more and more a part of the infrastructure build out. And when I look at crypto, that's what I'm looking at, is what is the technology leapfrog we're seeing? And bring those two, AI and blockchain technology, together, and all of a sudden you got a Moore's Law that may actually go from doubling to tripling going forward. And I think that's really something we have to take a look at. So I'm going to show a couple companies that I own portion of. And it's something I wanted to point out real quick. Bitcoin is at $70,000 roughly. Most people think when they buy a stock, well, when you buy a stock, you buy a share. And so you have to pay, for instance, NVIDIA, I think, is right around $945. So a share is going to cost you $945. Bitcoin is right around 70,000. Most people would look at that and go, well, I can't afford that. But what you need to understand is with crypto, you can buy fractional amount of it. So like you were pointing out earlier, you can buy, 1% of Bitcoin, say at $1,000 or about $7,000, or you could buy $1 worth or $10 worth. It's the same with all crypto. So you can get into the crypto game and add it to a portion of your portfolio for a affordable price. So that's something I wanted to point out because a lot of people are unaware of that. So for instance, I bought some, I mine Bitcoin, and I get paid out every about basically 2 or 3 hours, and I get a fractional share of Bitcoin. I bought some Solana last week. I bought basically a share of it, but I have added to it, and I have now some fractional shares as well. So the ability to buy crypto and get into crypto is really easy. There's a low barrier of entry for sure. So what is Solana? Can you see the chart here, Mark?
Yep.
Okay.
That's cool.
So this is Solana. Solana is basically a financial transactional crypto coin. And what they're building is a network where you can transact, like if you go to the store, you buy with your Visa, there's that transaction between you from the terminal to the Visa to your checking account or however you pay, right? Well, what Solana is focused on is one, protection of your identity, two, security, and three, speed. Okay, so where Solana's technology has really advanced pretty rapidly is the amount of the speed for which that transaction happens. So I don't have my numbers right off the top of my head, but whatever the amount of transactions Visa makes in, say, a minute, it's 3 times that with Solana they can transact at. So that means more transaction at a more affordable price to Visa. So this is a company that brings that speed, identity protection, and security together at a affordable cost. And that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize is the cost to do transactions over the internet because of server cost, because of energy costs, this, that, and the other. All that factors into that fee that they charge when they make a transaction.
Well,
Solana addresses this.
second parties too. Like if you do a transaction and you have to go through a bank to move stuff,
Right.
that takes time, and they charge you a fee for that too.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
this is Solano. As you can see here, there's a lot of lines, but I use an indicator that gives me resistance levels and support levels based on volume of buying. And I incorporate Mark's teachings in the Platinum channel. And as you can see, I have a lot of moving averages. The white one's the 9, the 20 is the yellow. I have a 50 is the blue. I throw in the 90 because I learned that years ago, more of a long-term perspective. And then orange is that, or the orange one is the 200. And what we have seen is similar to what we saw with Bitcoin. We saw that wedge, that descending flag formation, and then we've seen a breakout on the 15th of May. And since then, it has gone from a close on the 15th of May at $158.45 to a high today of $188.83. But there is some selling up here, and we're seeing it pull back today. And chances are it'll come down to this 9. And if there is support there, then I anticipate we will see a move higher in Solana. So I'm looking at this from an intermediate to long-term perspective. If you just go back to, was that October of 23, it was trading at $27.11. Similar to what Bitcoin was doing. It's moved up. They all sort of moved together. But Solana is the technology. I like the idea of how identity protection, security, and speed when it comes to Solana, and that's why I like it. So it's a portion of my crypto portfolio overall. Let's see.
I think that's important that you should, before you invest, you should know what you're investing in. Don't just go, because I don't know much about Solana, and I'm learning right now. And there's a lot of these out there that, I work hard to make my money. I make hard to make it work for me. And so I don't put it in anything. I don't chase anything unless I understand or have an understanding of what that entity or asset class I'm getting into actually isn't, and get to be a little bit of an expert on it so you can explain it to people. If you can't explain what you're in or why you're in it, you probably shouldn't be in it. Would you agree?
That's true. Oh, absolutely. And I think that goes for anything. I think a lot of people jump into a stock because their buddy at the water cooler told them about it, or you listen to a YouTuber and he's blowing it up and he's excited about it. That's great and fine, but take a couple hours to go figure out how this stock or company actually plays in to the future, because that's
So
really
don't
what we're buying is, right?
so don't go buy GameStop because Roaring Kitty had a forward leaning
Right. I mean,
cartoon.
it's exactly. I mean, that is just the ultimate in hope and meme stocks is the guy is silent for 2 years and he puts up a tweet. He's never hadn't talked or put a tweet up in 2 years, and he puts a picture up of a guy in a chair, and one movement is up and the next movement is down, and GameStop goes through the roof. Don't invest that way. Take some time, get to
I
know
think
what
if
the
you go
company
and
does.
yeah, if you go and you look at the options chart prior to him, somebody knew something because the
Oh
options
yeah,
chart they were ready for that uptick, and then retailers followed in and got in too high, and then it just dumped on them, a rug pull, and
right.
that's what happens to us poor retailers if because we're here for the institutionals and the hedge funds to take our money away, and we're trying to make sure they don't.
Exactly. And I think that's, a prime example of that guy knew something, because I think he took 21,000 and turned it into about 3.8 million in those option contracts. So hopefully it's probably a hedge fund, probably somebody in the know. No accidents don't happen in the stock market.
No, no,
Absolutely. All right. The next one is a company, and I believe you own this as well, is Cardano.
I do have some Cardano.
Yeah, and Cardano's back history is it was the guy who started it, um, is a part of the Ethereum uh, movement. Ethereum is the second biggest held crypto out there. It is what Ethereum basically has created a network for which you can build um, applications on, and it has become one of the more popular ones. It's also one of the older cryptos out there, and I can't pronounce the guy's name who started it, but it's pretty.
Charles Hoskinson.
No,
Oh no, no,
that's
that's
for
Cardano.
Cardano.
That's
Who's
Cardano. Vlad is all I know him as. I can't
Vlad?
pronounce his name.
Right,
Vlad. No.
very robotic seeming kind of guy, but he is one of the founders of one of the biggest networks, Ethereum. Well, Charles left Ethereum and started Cardano, which trades under the symbol ADA USD, which is the Coinbase symbol. And I own a portion of this, and I'll share my screen. Are you seeing my screen now? Yeah.
Yep, that's there. Yep.
Okay. Cardano has been on a wild ride, especially in the last, I would say, last year or so. It got as high intraday on March 14th of this year at 81 cents. Since then, it hit a low on April 13th of 40 cents. And since then has gone really sideways until just recently it broke above, came off the bottom of the Bollinger Band, um, broke above the 9 and the 20, and just recently broke above the 50, and now is pulling back today. There is a group of sellers in this area, so this is a resistance level that I believe it's running into. But I think since the halving of Bitcoin, you often see that rotation back into crypto after within the last 18 months from a halving. And I think Cardano is one of those from a technology standpoint. It's providing us basically scalability features based on what they're developing, interconnectability, and this is a lot of people don't really understand what that means. Is you can build a project in a blockchain format. The challenge that has been come into play is the fact that your block that you've built doesn't interact or speak the same language as, say, somebody else's. And what Cardano is bridging the gap with is the ability to translate and relay your information from your block to somebody else's block. And that's just like a 10,000 overview. And Cardano is doing that, and they're creating by doing that they have to create some level of stability within the network so it seamlessly flows information and data flows from one block to another. Very complicated, but what they're sort of becoming is the middleman that is needed to be, that needs to happen, along with Polkadot, which is another one I also own, is creating that interconnectability between different blocks and different coins or tokens, as you could refer to them. And so this is one. Now, it is definitely not below the 200, which in the platinum swing trading would be a no-no at this point, from a conservative standpoint. Below the 90, which on my book is, those, we're starting to bridge that gap between the token or Cardano's price and the 200, but that's still resistance. There's a lot of resistance there. So if you're looking at this, do your homework, do your research, and make your decisions based on what you figure and how it plays out into the future. And so right now I do own some Cardano. When I see it break over 200 and that becomes support, I will most likely add to that. But until then, I'm just staying with my very small portion in it because of how fast this stuff moves and how fast this could be at a higher rate. Plus, I believe in the technology, most importantly, and how it integrates with the future of blockchain, but also AI as well. All right, Mark. Well, I think we've beaten the drum on crypto.
Yeah, a couple old regular guys who now are looking at crypto.
Right. So we plan to do more content on crypto because we believe in it. Mark believes it from a store of value perspective. I'm looking at it both from a store of value and technology and the evolution of this next Web 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, and gone. So we'll be featuring crypto more. Subscribe to our YouTube channel here, but also check us out. Subscribe to the Platinum channel. You get a whole lot more than just swing trading and crypto, but you also get our ETF tracker. And really popular, Carrie's cheat sheet, his 38 stocks that he is tracking. He is focused on AI, so his focus on AI and our focus on crypto start to come together and how they can support each other. But it's a really great service, and check it out. There's no, you can cancel anytime, $60 a month, and maybe we'll put a coupon below that you can get in for a little less. So check us out at www.bus13.ai. That is also www.bestofUSinvestors.com. It'll take you to the same website. Check us out and subscribe. We look forward to hearing from you, and leave your comments below. We'd love to hear what you want to hear more about. Take care, and from Trent.
And Mark, don't forget to hit the like button.
Hit the like button. To regular guys who just like and love investing. See ya.